Hello and welcome to another edition of Focus on Morris County. I'm Joe Garifo, Public Information Director for the Morris County Government. Focus on Morris County is a program that's designed to keep us up to date on the actions being taken by the Morris County Board of Freeholders. And it's also intended to make us all more aware of the many facets of Morris County government. For example, on this segment of the program, we are going to focus on the Morris County Prosecutor's Office, and I am happy to be joined in the studio today by Morris County Prosecutor Robert Bianchi. Prosecutor Bianchi has been Morris County Prosecutor since June of 2007, the month after he was nominated to that position by New Jersey Governor John Corzine. Prosecutor, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Joe.
Before we talk about the Prosecutor's Office itself, can you give us a little thumbnail sketch maybe of your legal career prior to becoming prosecutor?
Sure. I was a graduate of Seton Hall Prep and went to Providence College. After graduating college, I went to Seton Hall Law School. Right out of Seton Hall Law School, I became an assistant prosecutor in the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office. While at the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office, a very, very busy office, very proactive office. I was very fortunate very early on in my career to be given very significant cases, including a number of homicide cases up to and including death penalty cases. I worked in the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office for 7 years, and after I left the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office, went into private practice with my father. I primarily practiced in the area of criminal defense work and actually civil rights litigation.
Okay.
I became certified by the New Jersey Supreme Court as a certified criminal trial attorney in 1997, and that's a pretty significant distinction. It's a very hard distinction to receive. You have to have tried a number of cases to successful conclusion. They evaluate you based upon interviews with judges, attorneys, ethics, things of that nature. And if you become certified, you're given that distinction for 7 years. Now it's 5 years. And then you have to become recertified. I became recertified in 2004. And in fact, I'm going for my third recertification based upon both my prosecutorial background as well as my criminal defense work. Since that criminal defense work that we've done, there were numbers of cases that we've tried on the criminal defense side up to and again, including murder cases. And the civil rights work was interesting too because I was also a what they call a police practices expert. I did a number of civil cases in the area of police brutality, false arrest, malicious prosecution. So it gave me a pretty good understanding of also the nuts and bolts of how police departments are supposed to operate.
Okay. Now, I mentioned that you were nominated, all prosecutors here in New Jersey are nominated to that post by the governor. You were nominated in 2007. Can you give us an idea of what that process is like leading up to the nomination and then after the nomination?
Well, it's, you know, for some, the process is easier than others. Essentially what happens, but based on the New Jersey Constitution, is that the governor would make a nomination of an individual that they believe was suitable for the position. That would also then require the advice and consent of the Senate. It's what they call a constitutional position. And each of the state senators in your jurisdiction would have to consent to your nomination in order for you to be successfully passed through.
Right.
So as you've indicated, I was nominated, I believe it was in March, and I believe by May or June, the actual full Senate had, the senators had signed off, they call it signed off on the nomination, and then you actually go before the full Senate, and the full Senate would actually vote on whether or not you should, receive the position. I'm proud to say that I received 100% of the votes in the Senate and then became prosecutor on June 22nd. What
specifically is the role of the prosecutor's office when it comes to law enforcement in Morris County?
It's a very intense position. By Constitution, there's a considerable amount of discretion and authority that's given to the county prosecutor. Our office essentially is involved in almost, and people would be surprised, in this every facet of not just law enforcement, but health, public safety, welfare, and concerns that you would have about the public safety and welfare. Essentially, we're the chief law enforcement agency in the county. We are responsible not only for conducting investigations, we do significant investigations, generally speaking, where there's more resources that would be required, higher-end narcotics, major crimes, sex crimes. Our detectives have specialty training in certain areas like the Family Division, juvenile crime, intelligence gathering, intelligence crime task force. Major narcotics cases I've indicated. And we also have a legal staff of attorneys. They're called our assistant prosecutors. Our assistant prosecutors are responsible for prosecuting the crimes that are brought forward either from our own detective task force or the local police departments that bring those cases to them. County Prosecutor is also responsible for the supervision of all of the local police agencies within the county. In Morris County, we have 39 municipalities, 44 law enforcement agencies. We're one of the largest in terms of number of police agencies within the county. So we have to make sure that they comply with constitutional mandates, the Attorney General directives, and the County Prosecutor's directives.
Yeah. I know there are a number of units, as you mentioned, within the Morris County Prosecutor's Office. Let's focus on one or two of them if we can. There is one that is called the Aggressive Trial Prosecution Unit. What is that unit all about?
Well, that really is more, it's a unit, it's a concept. When we came into office, again, having come from a very proactive, very aggressive trial prosecution background in Hudson County, it was my judgment, after having reviewed a number of the cases that were in Morris County, that we needed to stand up on our feet, as we like to call it as attorneys, get in there, start fighting for cases. We saw that there were a number of very significant high-profile cases that were really not being given much attention to. And that's not to the fault of anybody that was in our staff. I have to tell you, we have one of the most professional, excellent assistant prosecutor and detective staffs, and I'm not just saying that, I mean that. It's really a vision of the administration. As you may know just from reading the newspapers, we had cases that were murder cases that were 9 years old, 7 years old, 6 years old. This is an extraordinarily unhealthy amount of time. Everybody knows there's a basic maximum in the law that time is the enemy of the prosecution. Witnesses get lost, memories fade, evidence deteriorates. You want to get into court as quickly as possible and try those cases. I'm proud to say that our prosecution unit, the aggressive prosecution unit that you're talking about, essentially took all of those aging cases on the vine, and we've pretty much eliminated in a year and a half, at a considerable amount of effort, all of those cases. In fact, in the last 8 months, we tried 5 homicide cases to successful jury verdict, which I'm very, very proud of. I'm proud of that not only because the aging cases are out of the way, but when you're sitting in that courtroom and I tell my assistant prosecutors and that jury verdict comes back and it's a guilty verdict, and you know justice was served and the right thing was done, and you see those victims' families who have waited so long to receive justice. The Randolph, we're here in Randolph, just thinking of the little Jennifer Parks, 16 years old, dismembered and murdered. And when you see the family have that sense of relief that something has finally been done, and they come to you and thank you and say to you, you know, if it wasn't for your administration, I know this wouldn't have happened. It's really a proud moment. And that trial that you mentioned came to trial relatively quickly, as opposed to the other cases that you mentioned that have gone on for years. And that must weigh on the victims' families as well, because after all this time, they still have to relive the events of those crimes. Yeah, I mean, we'd like to, you know, the system doesn't mean to do this, but we often talk about how the system sometimes can victimize the victims a second time. The system works. There's a reason for having the system the way it is. There's a reason why we have a defense bar. I know people get agitated about it. It's interesting to me that we talk about our Constitution and preserving the flag and preserving what we stand for, but sometimes people want to abridge the system. The system is designed to make sure that the prosecutor doesn't have the final say, that there's a defense lawyer there to defend the person, and that's right, that there's a judge there to be an independent person, and that process sometimes takes time. I don't think that, even though we talk about the case, it got tried quickly, it was really 3.5 years. To me, that's still far too long. So we want to get to answer your question, you want to get victims the justice as quickly as you can, but of course ensuring that it's done in a just and constitutional way. Another unit you mentioned is the Intelligence Crime Task Force. What can you tell us about this unit? That's our baby, if you will, and when we came in here, and I have to give special credit to my first assistant prosecutor, Tom Zalante, and Chief William Chavella, and Captain Jeff Paul and Captain Rich Rose from our office. Essentially, when we came into office, they're really the commanders, the people I just mentioned, and basically take my vision and are the ones that are really doing the nuts and bolts work. What we had noticed was that there was an intelligence unit, and there's intelligence units in law enforcement, and what their object is to gather information, hopefully to the resolution of solving crimes. Our intelligence unit, when I would ask, you know, how many arrests we've had or how many prosecutions, wasn't really producing anything. So our Intelligence Crime Task Force was essentially to be a hub of a wheel in our own office, as well as the outside police agencies, where we get information in specifically designated for gangs, drugs, and guns. That's their main focus. We no longer have 3 separate units there. Those units, in my opinion, all need to be working together because those disciplines interact with one another. They're gathering intelligence with the local police agencies and the local police chiefs who have been excellent in terms of working with the prosecutor's office. And the results of working what we call an intelligence-led policing concept is that we are not reactively waiting, we proactively go out and target individuals that we know are committing the most serious offenses in the county. And the proof of the success of that is in the last 3 operations, I'm proud to say, in Morris County, we have seized more narcotics and more guns and more assault firearms in 3 operations in the past year than the past 5 to 10 years combined.
Gang violence, a serious problem in Morris County?
The gang issue is a serious problem. Violence is escalating. In fact, the two of those cases where we made major narcotics and weapons arrests, where we were actually right there when shootings were about to occur, or a shooting actually did occur, which is what started us focusing on one of the gangs. Listen, it's not something that is out of control, but it is something that is definitely here. I could show you videotapes of gang meetings that are occurring in Hedden Park. I can show you tapes in Morris County Jail of people that are talking about how they're coming to Morris County. But the good news about it is that we're proactive, and we've been given the support of the freeholders who have given us all the resources that we have asked them for. And this is a very, very important, the interrelationship with the government agencies. And the freeholders giving us the opportunity to be able to go out there and get ahead of the curve before it entrenches itself. For example, in the last 3 operations, we've dismantled the Latin Kings with the help of the Dover Police Department, the Wharton Police Department, Rockaway Police Department, and those local agencies have assisted in us in pretty much dismantling that organization in that part of the county.
This has probably been the quickest 15 minutes or so that we've done on the show. We are just about out of time, but Prosecutor Bianchi, I want to ask you, if someone wanted to get in touch with your office, if they wanted to find out about some of the various programs, because I know you do go out into the community and we have not touched on that yet, how can they reach the Morris County Prosecutor's Office?
Well, you could always reach our main number is 973-285-6200. But my suggestion is, if you want to really see what the office is about, I think we have the most awesome website in law enforcement, and you can go to just Google Morris County Prosecutor's Office or go to www.morrisprosecutor.org.
Right.
And that should get you on there, and you go to our community affairs and you see what it is that we're doing. It's really awesome.
Great.